Hello, and welcome to this episode of Absolutely Not. My name is Katrina Stroll, and my pronouns are they, she, he. Thank y'all so much for being here with me. I am so grateful to everyone who keeps showing up and being a part of this growing community. I cannot thank y'all enough. Real quick, y'all, I have a blog. You would know that if you had subscribed to my newsletter, but if you have not already subscribed, please do so. And also go check out my blog. The key words for this episode are culture, trauma, and defiance. I encourage y'all to look up the definitions of these words and compare them to the definitions you carry with you on a daily basis. If you need help comparing, please let me know. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp allows you to connect with 24,000 licensed therapists in a safe and private online environment. You pay a low flat fee for unlimited therapy with your therapist. Visit www.betterhelp.com/absolutelynot for more information and to get 10% off your first month. This link can be found in the show notes. Today's episode is titled, Here's What Works. Right? To the point. And that point is made by our amazing special guest today, Christina Heath, she, her. As a strategic alignment coach, she trains project managers to approach work and life holistically. Through career-focused personal development, she helps PMs build authority, be happier, healthier, and more strategic leaders, and craft work lives that they love. As a person, she enjoys actively resting, unlearning faulty and outdated mental programming, and most of all, chilling with their partner, daughter, dog, and bunny in sunny Florida. She identifies as Black, Jamaican, American, second-generation immigrant, neurodivergent, an introvert, firstborn, recovering perfectionist, and a former single parent. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Katrina. I'm very glad to be on.
We chose the right one for this topic. The topic of here's what works. Are you ready to tell us what works today?
Ready? Yeah, I'm very ready.
Okay.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
No. Oh, okay. I'm sure it's a big topic to cover today, but how did you get to the point that you knew why do you know what works? How do you have the keys to the kingdom?
So it was through a lot of trial and error and a lot of tears and a lot of wondering, why me? What did I do? Maybe I can squish myself into this box. Maybe I can be like this person and it won't hurt so much. Got to the point where that just wasn't, it never served me, but I was shrinking myself so small that there was nothing left of me. And that's no way to live. I have a daughter, and I wanted to model something better for her. I couldn't bear the thought of her making herself small in this world, that I'll light everything on fire before that happens. And second, I didn't have anything left to give to her. And when you feel so low, you can kind of trick yourself into thinking, okay, I deserve this. But I couldn't look at my child and say, she deserves this. So I had to pick myself up and had to figure out some ways to make my existence work. And so entitling this episode, Here's What Works, that comes from a phrase that I say I made it up. There's nothing new, right? But I like to say, that won't work, here's what will. That's a phrase that helps me when I'm setting a boundary. If something is brought to me that I need to react to, or I'm put in a situation where my cows are up, I don't know what to do. In my head, I say, this won't work. Like what I'm being given right now, that won't work. Here's what will. And so my strategy that I want to share with everyone is, if I'm being given something that does not serve me, will not work, I'm just not into it. You know how it feels. I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? I'm no longer living the people pleaser life. There is still a part of me, a part of that trauma that makes me want to center the other person's comfort. And so I think a way for me to soothe myself when that need comes up is to offer a solution or offer another option that does work for me. And you can choose from there or you can bow out. Um, so that's what works for me. So for example, if I'm ever working with someone or talking to someone who is dealing with a corporate situation or a business situation or even a custody situation, right? Like you need to just be professional, keep it above board. Sometimes we might want to respond with, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I just want to apologize. I'm not able to do this one thing because XYZ," right? That doesn't put you in a position of power. That puts you in a position of cowering and apologizing. And now you've offered up a reason why you can't do this thing. And that's something that that other person can solve for, whether they have ill intentions or not, to get the thing that they want to get. And so what I do is I say, "Hey, that won't work," or "Hey, I'm not available for that." Period. That's the end. And I have a list of things that work and don't work, and we can get into them in a minute. It's included in there, but I stop. I just make the statement, "That won't work." And then in my head, I flip the switch of, "Here's what will." And sometimes I even say that, "That won't work, period. Here's what will, colon. We can meet Friday at such and such time, or next week, Wednesday at such and such time. Let me know if either of those work for you. Thanks." And that's the end. And I found that when I started implementing that type of air quotes, "that won't work, here's what will" strategy in all different areas of my life, ooh, I felt the weight on my shoulders just start to fall off. Because I wasn't carrying the weight of other people's expectations and what might it be and how might it wasn't there anymore, not really. Um, so that's how I got here. And I try to help other people step into their agency and their power. And I know that one of our keywords today is defiance. You can be compassionately defiant, compassionately no nonsense. And that's how I like to live my life.
Hey, get me a t-shirt. Compassionately no nonsense, compassionately defiant. What I love that you're sharing with the audience is that those traits that you had prior to knowing what works for you never served you. Ooh, and that really hit me in the chest because there's a point in our lives where we believe that they are serving us, that those traits are serving us. Do you
Mhm.
remember a time in your life where you truthfully believed that it was serving you, it was giving you the best life that you could live?
Mhm. Yes. So two situations. I won't go into too specifics, but I always ran into that situation in my work life and also in my personal relationships. So I found myself both at the same time, probably maybe, yeah, 8 years ago, working at a job where I was being constantly kind of low key belittled, but expected to do a whole lot. And also in a marriage where I was being constantly low key belittled and expected to carry a whole lot. And it was at that point when everything just came to a head. I had just had my daughter, and my mother was there to help me out, my sister, my friend, my partner at the time, no. Um, and I just came to the realization looking around of what my life looked like because I did not know how to set up good walls around myself. I didn't I didn't know where to start. I didn't know that I deserved that. And as a result, because I wasn't being very discriminatory, I think is a good word. I wasn't being very choosy about what was allowed in my orbit. That let people in who were not very discriminatory about whose orbit they fell into. And um, yes, so I would say it's two very specific situations: my marriage at the time and my work situation at the time. And it just all came to a head, and it brought me to where I told you at the beginning with my daughter, where I was like, if this is her in 20 something years, like I'll be all the way damned. This is not happening.
Another t-shirt, everybody. Write it down, make me some shirts. But I'll be damned. I will be damned. And I think of how amazing of a planet you are, Christina. Like the light that you shine on other planets, me. I love to be in orbit with you. when did you realize that you had that type of orbit that only certain planets should be able to orbit around me?
Ooh, first of all, Katrina, ooh, way to phrase the question. I think that's something that I realized as I turned 30. Um, I like astrology. And so anybody who has been around astrology, dipped more than a toe in, knows that around the 30th birthday or so is the Saturn return, darling. And that can mean a lot of different things, yes. But that's why, if you believe in astrology, take it or leave it. But I believe, and many people who are into astrology and the cosmos believe, once people hit that 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 age range, stuff starts burning all around you. And you're like, why is it on fire? Nope, why? Why? So right around the time where I was about to turn 30 is when I looked around and everything was on fire. And I was like, no, 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 no. Stuff started falling away. Things that I had been hanging on to for a really long time, it was being pulled away from me now, right? I was hanging on to the wheel and it's like, nope, we're not driving anymore. And so from there, I think, started reconstructing my self-concept and very slowly and deliberately allowing myself to learn about me, and through my own lens, not through the lens of what I had been told growing up, or not through the lens of I've been treated this way, what does that mean about me? I allow myself to make new friendships, new relationships. And I think that is when I really started to craft an identity that is real, right? This is me, but I thought the old one was me. So it's just really interesting. I think I would say right around the time where I turned the corner into my 30s. And maybe that's just a coincidence, it's a nice round number, but I think that's when I started realizing, like, yo, I can choose this. It's not just what I'm given. And even if I don't have that much mental, emotional space or energy, I can take care of my child. I can take care of myself, and I can use the little bit that might be left to be really deliberate about what else I bring in. And just from there, I guess I started building my building my little moons and my little, asteroid belts and the stars and stuff around me.
You heard that? She said she built the stars around. Get you a star today. If you don't have stars around you, please find you a star today, because obviously you can get them. You can get them. Is it on Amazon? Is it on?
You know what? You know what? And we're taking a little break from Amazon. I'm just kidding. That's one of those things where when you're busy enjoying your life and really focusing on trying to do what you do because you love it and because it just brings you a little bit of joy, that's when it starts kind of magnetically pulling in those little stars. And like, I can't even remember how I met you. I don't know if you can remember how you met me. We just sort of we just kind of started like orbiting near each other. And that's how it works. It's magnetic in that way, but you have to start shoring that up for yourself first. And then the people who are also doing that will recognize that in you. And then you start orbiting closer and closer.
Mm. And I love that you keep talking about, if you were not doing the work within yourself, then you said the people that are going to orbit, they're going to orbit regardless. They will come over your house regardless if your door is open. And Christina, we have had conversations about the houses we are building. When was the last time somebody came in your house because your door was open, or is your door's not open anymore, is it? It's not open door.
A lock on that? No. We have a lock on that. I change the keys as often as needed. I hand them out whenever I feel comfortable and I feel like I'm at home with that person. And for everyone listening, I think in pictures, and Katrina might think in pictures as well. So analogies and metaphors really work. But we had a conversation a while ago, maybe a couple months now, about how your life is like your house, and we're in charge of the front door and who we let in. And people can rat-a-tat-tap on the door and we can kind of crack it open and see who it is. And if you're selling vacuums, like, do I want a vacuum? Like, you can ask yourself, you can vet what's going on at your front door. And you can also choose to stand there and not answer because you just know that you're not interested, or you don't have the space inside, or you don't want visitors. So that's what we mean when we talk about having a house and a home and the walls, and building a home that is ours. Not, I mean, you can do it literally, but in terms of your interactions and where you put your energy.
Mhm. And I love that. I've had a lot of guests on the show, and when I ask them for their identities, some of them don't have long lists, but you have a very extensive list and you know exactly who you are. Was it difficult to be able to put all of your identities in words, or have you always known who you are and what kind of house you are building for yourself and what your house looks like?
Ooh, I have not always known who I am. I have always looked for clues about who I am in the people who are around me. And that has not served me. So being asked to list out my identities, I loved having that opportunity. It's not one that it's not something I've ever really done before. And I've always kind of been, I mean, I'm Black all day, every day, let's be real, but I've always kind of been Black when I'm over here. And then maybe when I'm over here, I am the daughter of an immigrant. And when I'm over here, I'm a little bit more American. And, being able to have them all listed out, hearing you read them, that was just really nice, because that is me. And the one about being neurodivergent, that's something that I've always had an inkling about. I mean, but who has time? Life is tough. Life is tough partially because of my neurodivergencies. But I was just like, who has time to try and figure out if that's what's really going on? So even just getting to know myself and giving myself the grace to get the help that I need, um, that wasn't automatic either. That took a lot of time for me to get there.
Ooh. And I love that you're using the word grace, because there are a lot of people that share your identities that are not giving grace elsewhere. And because of that, they don't give grace to themselves. We will drink that all together. All of us will drink it together. But the neurodivergency part, even in corporate spaces or even in the workplaces you have worked in, have there ever been people who have accommodated that identity or have been mindful of it at all?
So no, but I will add the caveat that I also was not honoring myself in those spaces either. So when we want to talk about boundaries, one of the points I'll make in a little bit is that it's not always about other people's behaviors and other people's stuff. Like, sometimes it is about you. And one of my boundaries is to, like, up front, now that I know what the deal is, up front say, hey, I'm gonna need to, read your lips sometimes because of just how my mind processes sound. It takes me a minute. Or I'm a project manager, right? People expect project managers to be just on it all the time. And if we're in the office and you want to first of all, please don't interrupt my flow, my thinking flow. But if you want to interrupt my thinking flow and say, hey, we need you in office room 42B, just want to have you weigh in on something. And I'm like, okay, I get up, walk over there. I've got racing thoughts. And you ask me about something that's on the projector, and everybody else is sitting at the long table and they look up at me for what's your take? I have no take. I've made a grocery list in my head on the way over here. I'm already trying to guess what time it is based on the position of the sun. Like, I've done sang The Sound of Music 3 times. Like, we've got all kinds of other stuff going on. And in those situations, I used to just allow that to happen. And I would put myself under a lot of pressure. And I used anxiety as a way to keep myself on task and operating just like everyone else in the room. So treating my anxiety, allowing myself to let go of some of that, it does, it slows you down a little bit, but not in a bad way. And so to answer your question, I don't remember anyone, kind of allowing me to breathe into myself and be me and work in a way that works best for me. But also, again, it starts with me. I was not allowing that for myself either, and sort of saying, hey, Tim, could you send me an email? And I'll get to it in the morning.
I love how, I mean, I don't love it, but I love how interconnected your past behaviors are, because just you talked about perfectionism and people pleasing and neurodivergency and trying to be like everyone else. And they're all just like a web of behaviors that are just self harming. They do not help anybody except for the people trying to make the most money out of you. And you talked about operating on anxiety. I recently started therapy with a new therapist, and she asked me during the intake, she was asking me, at what level of anxiety do you feel like you're at on a daily basis? I was like, ooh, a cool 7, like a cool 7, maybe 8. And she was like, oh, and you like it there? I was like, I don't know. I don't like it there. I have been operating in 7, 8 my whole life. Like I've been operating here my whole life. And it brings me success in certain spaces. When did you understand, or when did it click for you that their success does not equate to your success or well-being?
Ooh. I'm laughing at cool 7, not laugh. That's the number I was thinking of, like, no,
A
you
hot
sounded like
7, sorry.
Tuesday. We just on that side of the number line. Uh, I think when I started realizing that no level of productivity would be enough in anywhere ever in this life. And so when I started becoming very frustrated about the number of hours that I had in a day, and real talk, trying to figure out ways to sleep less, and daycare had a 10-hour limit, trying to figure out alternate forms of care for my child so that I could be more productive, or have my gym time, which, I mean, for me, maybe for others, I don't know, for me it was code for making my body more productive and making my body accomplish multiple goals for me while I'm out and about in people's gaze. So increasing my metabolism, so I think when I began seeing that there was no finish line when it came to me being productive, and that it was a losing, I don't want to say losing battle, but sort of a losing game. Like, this is not ending. The only way it ends is when I just sort of step aside a little bit and like let everything rush past me. And then I started seeing the differences between me when I'm not focused on productivity and other folks who were focused on productivity. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started separating my identity from my ability to produce for a company or for a person or for other people's gaze. And that's when it started for me.
Um, to anybody who's listening, I know you have a pen and paper already. I know you do, because I told y'all to have a pen and paper for this, but I hope you wrote that down. So many amazing gems just in that realization. One of the biggest ones I want to take away for the rest of my life, a continuous question I'm going to ask myself whenever I take on a new project is, where is the finish line? Where is my finish line, my personal finish line? Is this lining up with my finish line, or is this going to take me to Sweden? Is it going to take me somewhere off in the ocean somewhere? Because my finish line looks like rainbows and bunnies and like honey glazed hams, and it looks a lot different than tons of money and fame and whatever they're trying to sell me on this track. So I have to ensure I know where my finish line is. And if this track is lining up, where is my finish line? Christina, are there other questions like similar to the finish line question that you ask yourself to ensure that people aren't trying to take you for a ride?
Ooh, yes. So one is, am I in an ambiguity loop? right now? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. Yeah. When I feel myself turning the same problem over in my head over and over, anxiously, that anxiety ramps up, right? Anxiously trying to figure out how to get the quote right answer or do things right. And if I pause and I look around and it seems like everyone else is just living their dandy lives, and I'm the only one here working myself up into a tizzy, which might be to my own doing, from my own doing, right? Like from my choices. I stop and I ask, am I in an ambiguity loop? And there are a few things that, especially in the corporate space, but also in relationships, anywhere, a few things that can play into finding yourself in an ambiguity loop. And one of them is thinking that if you just get the answer right, you'll stop doing loops and you'll be able to like breathe. And that can come from having someone in a position of power over you, or in leadership, right? That's a position of power, who isn't giving you clear directions or clear expectations. And if you decide to advocate for yourself and ask for assistance on direction, or ask for clarification on expectations, and you're not provided with that info that you need to be successful, that's a hint, that's a clue that you're in an ambiguity loop and you're going to be running through Sweden doing laps around the world. Yeah, so that's a question I ask myself, and I had to learn how to set boundaries around that, and also deal with what it feels like when people look at me like I'm the problem because I'm asking for clarification. So dealing with my own feelings and reactions to that pushback as well. That's a process.
So much clarity from all of the from this process that you have given us, because the one question that followed, when you were talking about the process of like, am I in an ambiguity loop, um, was why am I not breathing? You talked about like losing your breath and like trying to make sure I'm breathing. Like, why am I not breathing? Is it because the person above me has showed this type of behavior before, and if I breathe around them, I know that they're gonna flare up, or they're gonna tell me like I'm being defiant or what have you. It's also, if that I get that reaction from that person, why? Why can Tim and Tom ask questions about their projects, but I can't ask questions about my project? And you just learn a lot about the people you're around. I love that you're still also talking about yourself and your emotions when that occurs. When was the last time you had to sit with yourself and say, okay, we just got some data. What kind of emotions are we feeling currently?
Ooh, that's such a good question. So it's not work related. I haven't been a W-2 employee in about a year. So I work for myself. I know. So that means I get to help other people deal with their bosses and their team members. But I will say, dealing with my daughter's education. And so my child is in first grade, and I've had an IEP, which is an individual education plan for her. It's a federal document for anyone who doesn't know, and it helps the school understand what accommodations your child needs based on a diagnosis, a disability, or I would say learning preference. That's not the verbiage, but some people need to tap while they're thinking, right? And so allowing the child to learn how they learn best so that you can set them up for success. So I've had an IEP for my child since preschool, for speech therapy, several other diagnoses. And we are doing the damn thing. She's doing so well with these accommodations. I received feedback from her teacher about 5 weeks into the school year that she has done all she can do. This is just getting really difficult. I have other students that I also need to teach, right? And so first of all, I had to go through the layer of removing my mama bear from the situation, because it wouldn't have been productive to just, you know, put that aside. And then I had to look at the data objectively. And I blamed myself at first, as you do, unfortunately. And I said, I didn't communicate enough. I didn't Maybe I didn't send in the paperwork. I'm putting my daughter in a space where she can't advocate for herself. What's going on? And I found myself trying to communicate with this teaching professional, and I was in a loop. I was in a loop. I was trying to ask critical questions like, hey, I know that it's taking her a long time to pack up. Are you doing transitions between activities? Are we being sensitive to, maybe tapping her on the shoulder and saying, okay, 5 minutes until we do XYZ activity? Or are we just saying, okay, class, asking those questions and receiving responses back like, but everyone in the class knows what to do, or all the other kids are fine, or yeah, we have a big red clock in the classroom, like we're doing that already, I've tried that. And I felt that trauma response that I've always felt throughout my life of, if I keep pushing, I'm gonna break this relationship, I'm going to put my daughter at risk, I'm gonna put my reputation at risk, I'm a Black woman, I'm a woman, I have a partner now, but in my blood, I'm still a single mom, like when I deal with these professionals, and all of my insecurities about how they may view me start to flare up. And then I had to stop and ask myself, am I in an ambiguity loop? Am I working with someone who wants to help me succeed? Did that person deliver information in a way that allows me to come back with a response, and we strategically work together in a symbiotic exchange to create something that works for all parties involved? And the answer, I'm sure that you could deduce based on the information I provided thus far, was a very glaring neon sign of no. And so I did need to pull in other paraprofessionals. Some of them validated what I was saying, some of them did not, and I had to work through my own feelings with that as well. I did have to escalate to the principal, which in elementary school is, my mom is a teacher, and she advised that that's very normal, especially with a special education student. I received pushback from there as well. Words were put in my mouth. It was very weird. It was very weird, Katrina. And all through that, I had to manage my mind, and I had to remember, this doesn't have to mean anything about me. I'm doing my job advocating for my child. I'm doing my job iterating the information that is in the IEP, signed off on by professionals. If I'm being told, Mom, you need to send in the diagnosis paperwork, we don't see it here. In my head, I start going through a whole loop of, oh my God, they think I'm making it up. Am I making it up? Oh my God, I'm a snowflake. I'm a snowflake. And then saying, pause, Christina, calm yourself. Because if you got 3 professionals in their field signing off on the fact that this list of things helps your daughter succeed in mainstream education, that's not even you anymore, boo. That's just facts. So I got through that situation. Everything is fine. I now parallel parent with my child's teacher. She does her thing in the classroom. I do my thing at home, and we have wraparound services everywhere else to just fill in the gaps. But I no longer stay in ambiguity loops too much longer after I register that that's what I'm in. I don't stick around trying to fix it. I really do create an exit and step out and allow the information to speak for itself. It no longer needs my commentary. It no longer needs me proving that it's correct and sort of crossing my fingers behind my back, hoping that they believe me and that I'm seen as credible. I'm seen as a credible witness or a credible narrator of my story. I don't do that anymore. So I think that answers the original question. Maybe not, but we're going to go with it.
It definitely did. And everyone who is listening to this, please start focusing on these ambiguity loops. The biggest thing I took away from this conversation is that if somebody is trying to take me on a loop, I will be able to identify that because they don't want to go to the next stop. They want to stay in this loop. They just want to keep staying there. So if I'm saying, how do we get to the next stop? How do we how do we get somewhere else? And they're like, oh no, just stay here. We'll just keep doing this. Then I know, oh, you have no intention of moving forward with me. And so if this relationship is not a priority, then it shouldn't be a priority for me, because I have the very same thoughts, just like, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I don't know what I'm talking about. They're gonna think that I don't have anything put together or that I'm a mess. One of the biggest things I learned in therapy is when I prioritize other people's feelings over my own, or over my own safety, or over the safety of my child, just because I want somebody to perceive me a certain way, I need to vocalize that and say that out loud. Because sometimes it's really hard for me to process what I'm doing. But if I say it out loud, like, Katrina, you're making this decision so that that white woman in that office will think that you are a put together mom. You're making this decision because you want that person over there to think that you have lots of money. Stop making decisions based on that. Make decisions based on your safety and your overall well-being. Oh, we got to get these loops, but I got the loops and I know where to look for them. Thank you so much for sharing so much about what these processes look like, because where else are we going to learn about it? Like, a lot of people don't have this information. So I really appreciate you sharing it today. Who have been some of the biggest people that have pushed you into thinking other things, and to getting you out of the loops, and to making people understand that you are prioritizing yourself in every decision you're making?
Oh, wow. So I have a friend, we met in high school, and she does not live in my state. We're now 3 hours apart from each other, not driving distance, honey, time zone wise. Yes, but she is such a giver and such a caretaker. And I can go to her with anything, and she just reminds me who the F I am. And it's lovely. And if you have one person like that, I think it's great. I had a therapist off and on, and she was also really great. For different stages of my life, I think I really felt called to just pull her in and again just remind me who the F I am. And I see that as very valuable as well. And the last person would be my grandmother, who passed away when I was 20, but she's literally still my best friend. And I credit her to my confidence as well. So I credit my confidence to her, I should say.
I feel like every episode of Absolutely Not, I learn more about who people are utilizing to empower them. And I think that's the first time somebody has mentioned someone who's not here anymore. Actually, I think somebody has credited their ancestors before, but that is a very specific person. And I appreciate you bringing it to the space, because even though they're no longer here physically, they're still empowering you through every way that they can. So I cannot thank you enough for sharing. There are so many people who are going to be listening to this episode and who are thinking, oh, I need to get out of these fucking loops, and I need to have some damn conversations with some people tomorrow. What would be the top 3 tips you would share with them about having these conversations with these people?
Oh, okay. So I have a list. I'm going to pick from them, from my items. Set boundaries in a way, we talked about in the beginning. You can be compassionate and no nonsense. You can be compassionate and defiant. And that compassion, I think, goes to the other person in terms of when you're setting your boundaries, do not devalue them, right? The aim of the game is not to make them feel like they're trash so that you can feel safer. But the majority of the compassion needs to go to yourself when you're setting these boundaries. And I think that goes to what you were saying a little bit earlier, Katrina. That's my first thing is, when you're setting boundaries and you're having these conversations, be compassionate and observant, gather your data, but remember your goal. And your goal is to make yourself safer and create a life that you can move freely in. So that's the first piece. The second piece, okay. Jading, Jade. So this, I cannot for the life of me remember where I heard it. It might have been Alcoholics Anonymous, those types of groups. JADE stands for justify, argue, defend, or explain. And so when you are having these conversations, again, it's not a battle, it doesn't have to be. If you feel yourself either in an ambiguity loop, like what we just spoke about earlier, or start to sink into those tendencies where you feel like a victim, you need to remember your power and remember who you are. So remember that it's okay to say that won't work. Here's what will, period. You do not need to justify, oh, my mother is in town and such a, no, because is that really the real reason? No, because if they solve the mother problem, would the answer be a yes? No. Argue, once you find yourself arguing, I would cut it. Defend, you don't really need to defend your decision, it's yours and you have autonomy. And it goes back to that compassionate defiance. And explain. So it goes back to that excuse that I gave before. Oh, I used to do all the time. Oh, I have my daughter's at home. Oh, she can come. And then I'm like, damn it. No. And that goes in giving reasons is kind of kicking the can for yourself. Like if you know that this is going to be a thing, no matter what, regardless of the circumstances, you might as well just say, hey, this isn't something I'm interested in, or this isn't something I'm available for at this time. Thank you for understanding, and not apologizing, just saying thank you for your patience, thank you for understanding. And then finally, remembering your aftercare. So I know that Katrina and I, we've discussed this just a little bit here and there, but it's one thing to talk about setting boundaries for yourself, but like the sky doesn't open up and the sun rains gumdrops, like that shit hurts. And after the fact, like your feelings are raw and you might feel like crap, and that's totally normal. And so just allowing space to shut things off for a little bit and tell your brain, like, thank you for protecting me by giving me that trauma response and that flood of emotions, fight or flight, whatever you want to call it, we're safe. And I like to tell people to make contact with your skin if you can, and give yourself a nice hug and just calm your nervous system, because you've done a really good, loving thing for yourself by having these conversations and setting these boundaries. So in time it gets easier, but you have to stop and reward your brain and remind your brain, like, we're good, honey, like it's okay. Grab a juice box and relax, like we're gonna be okay. It takes that integration. So those are my 3 bits of advice.
And they good. They are really good. I appreciate how many times you have focused on the pauses that are needed throughout these processes. Like, it sounds good and dandy. We're making it sound like it's easy to go have these conversations, but it's definitely not. You will have to take pauses. You will have to take care of yourself. And I love that you have emphasized that today. There are a lot of tips that you have shared, and I know people are going to be ready and willing to move forward. So thank you so much. Are there any last minute sprinkles that you'd like to share with the audience before we go today?
Last minute sprinkles, I would say boundaries are telling people where the door is, not necessarily like shutting everyone out. And so tell people where the door is, just because it might seem scary telling people, no, you can't come in ass first through the back window. Like, you actually have to come through the door, and people with the good intentions for the most part are gonna walk around the house and get through the door. So I think that's my last minute sprinkle. But if anybody does want to talk to me a little bit more, I have a business where I help project managers do this type of work and also just be healthier and happier in their jobs and their day-to-day. And my website is www.mangoflowconsulting.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Christina Heath, and there's a PMP and a mango after my name.
And all of that amazing information will be in the show notes when this is published. This has been an amazing experience for me. I have so many notes written down. I cannot wait for everybody to listen to this For everyone listening, I hope that you took, I know y'all took a lot away from this, but the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is just defining that finish line for you, building your damn house, making sure you know where all the spare keys are, and being very specific about who is in orbit with you. Damn, that was a lot of gems in this one episode. Thank y'all so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Keep setting those boundaries and saying absolutely not to everything unaligned. Bye.